Hi. So we are now officially post-holiday season, which is a good time for pondering things. And in this case, I've spent a lot of time thinking about Barbie, as one does. Because obviously toys have a big presence during the holidays, but also there was the release of Wicked for Good and all the massive brand collaborations that followed alongside it. There were a lot of comparisons drawn to the time the Barbie movie hype was at its highest, and I guess that just made me reflect a little bit. Quite a while back, I made a certain video. It was around the time we got the first trailer for the Barbie movie, so about 2 years ago or so. It was all about Barbie's modern transition from a very notable pink and glamorous and hyper feminine figure into one more focused on realism and representing the average everyday woman. It is one of my favorite videos I've ever made, and I bring it up because this is, I suppose, sort of a follow-up, a sequel, if you will. Because in that video, I posed a pretty specific question. Because the Barbie movie seemed to still remember Barbie as she was in the 80s and 90s as this larger-than-life, super pink, super glittery, super girly character. The trailer even made a big deal about Barbie having flat feet rather than the permanent arch for wearing high heels, which we should know hasn't really been a thing for quite a while now. Barbie's been able to wear flats for years and has done as much for years. But because the Barbie in the Barbie movie was so different from how she was presented and marketed by Mattel in the modern day, it made me wonder if we would see a shift in her branding, if Mattel was now more keen on marketing her once again as all the things it has been actively trying to avoid for the better part of the last decade. Again, super pink, feminine, glamorous, things that were once deemed harmful and problematic for a female role model. But maybe society has progressed towards different ideals and the world could accept Barbie as she was once again. Well, spoiler alert, that didn't happen. Not to the extent that anyone had really hoped for, I don't think. And spoiler alert for this video, it's not a review of the movie. It's not even really a retrospective on the movie. Or maybe it is. Just probably not in the way you would expect from how I know I'm going to title this. Because I'm going to talk about the ways in which I think the Barbie movie was a failure. But, sit with me for a minute. Don't get mad just yet. Because I know the movie wasn't a failure. Not in the most objective sense possible. It was a financial success. It was a critical success. It was a marketing success. It dominated pop culture and the media for almost a full solid year. In every way that mattered, looking at the numbers and the statistics, the movie was a massive success. I know this, and I'm not here to argue that any of that success was unearned or undeserved either. This video is purely from the perspective of a doll collector, someone who is definitely a little more intimate and familiar with Barbie than the average person is, which I know sounds like I'm bragging, but trust me when I say that there is a very finite number of places that I can say that and it sound impressive to anyone. But still, speaking as a doll collector and someone who is very invested in Barbie and her future, there are certain things that the Barbie movie did and certain things that it didn't do that I think count as failures, and I want to talk about them. Because think back to 2022 and 2023. It was a magical time, wasn't it? Barbie was everywhere. There were so many brand collaborations, so many. You couldn't walk 3 feet outside of your home without seeing Barbie somewhere. And for so many people to come together and really celebrate this doll, this icon that was so important to me, I loved it. I was on top of the world. I also really appreciated the quite sizable boost I had in the algorithm during that time, but I suppose that's neither here nor there. But it was also a very weird time. Because of these collaborations, these celebrations, they seem to be for someone who really did not exist anymore. Because the Barbie they were all talking about was nothing like the Barbie that we have today. So there was this big disconnect that was kind of jarring because Mattel had gone so long essentially actively snubbing and trying to erase that part of Barbie's history to glorifying it, which, as you can imagine, was just a little frustrating. But it was hopeful too, because it presented the possibility of Mattel seeing the demand for this Barbie, the fun one. And yet, here we are. So let's talk about it. Starting with when the movie came out, I reviewed it in video format, which you can go back and watch if you feel so inclined. I believe I gave the film a 7 or an 8 out of 10, which for some reason a lot of people interpreted as being very negative. It wasn't. I love the movie. I still love the movie. I'm just a Virgo. The stars ordained that I should be picky and critical, and for something to get a 10 out of 10 from me, it has to be actually fundamentally life-changing in some way. But I did enjoy the movie. I do think my review was, for the most part, pretty positive. At least, looking back on the film, I remember primarily positive things. There were just some very large and specific criticisms I had with the film's messaging, especially speaking as a doll collector and a longtime friend of Barbie. There's really only one criticism I want to revisit right now, and that's the line near the end where Gloria is like, I have an idea. Let's make normal Barbie. Let's make an average Barbie. And it's presented as this extraordinary, groundbreaking concept. Let's make Barbie look normal. Like, girl, normal Barbie has been a thing for going on 10 years now. If you want a normal Barbie, drive to your nearest Walmart. There is an abundance of Barbies who look ready for a long day of filing their taxes. Hundreds of Barbies who look like the most exciting part of their day is putting their hazelnut muffin capsule into their Nespresso machines. And don't you dare talk to her before she's had her coffee. Like, Barbie in a tan suit and Birkenstocks is not a surprising or revolutionary concept, and it hasn't been for years and years and years. This has been the basic ultimate reality of Barbie since 2015. And the fact that the movie thought that this was something revolutionary and exciting for the brand shows two big things. One, how out of touch it is with people who actually engage with fashion dolls, which is not like a cardinal sin, mind you. It's not like I expected this little group of adult fashion doll collectors following around Greta Gerwig like some focus group of historical advisors. Could you imagine? That does sound very fun, like possibly my dream job, but I also acknowledge that we would be very, very annoying. Anyways, the second thing that scene tells me, despite Mattel's best efforts to refresh Barbie's image in the public and turn her into this average, normal, relatable girl next door, they've been almost wholly unsuccessful in doing so, because the public perception of Barbie still continues to be this very pink, very glamorous, very feminine celebrity figure. So not only is the movie out of touch with the current state of Barbie, Mattel is too, which is actually very interesting to dissect, just on a sociological level, given another one of the movie's core messages, which is that the public has thrust all these ideals onto Barbie and turned her both into a feminist figure and also the culmination of all the problems women face in America. Feminist and anti-feminist, empowering and oppressive. Does this new Barbie, the normal Barbie, really reflect a progressive mindset, or Is it just another way to package and sell the idea of womanhood? Much to ponder, but that is probably a different essay for a very different day. My point is, the movie, despite being fun and good and enjoyable, did not and does not reflect who Barbie is, nor did it reflect her trajectory as a brand. Which is ironic, again, given the movie had a big focus on Barbie specifically as an idea. And the movie itself was almost exclusively Barbie as an idea, not how she's actually represented as a product. The Barbies we saw in the movie were nothing like the Barbies on store shelves, unless you count, the Barbie movie Barbies, but we'll get there. And that's where I think it failed as the Barbie movie. And I know fail is this big, scary, negative word, but I need to repeat myself that I still don't think that makes it a bad movie. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the movie's content, but I do think this is an issue mostly to do with marketing, I suppose, rather than the movie itself. Because there's things that the movie could have done better in that aspect, but ultimately I think a lot of the consequence falls on Mattel's shoulders and what they should have done but didn't do. And because I am a Virgo, I did organize my thoughts into a nice, handy, little, short numbered list, just to hopefully keep me on track. And I came up with 4 big ways where I think the Barbie movie failed. Or maybe I should reword that to say ways that Mattel failed the Barbie movie, because that sounds a little nicer, but I don't know. Let's not change it up in the middle of the video. I've committed to this clickbait. Number 1, the movie did not promote any Barbie dolls. Again, unless you count the dolls made specifically for the movie, but we are not talking about those yet. What we are talking about right now are the several missed opportunities to highlight extremely historic and significant dolls from Mattel's catalog that the movie absolutely did not do. To which you might say, but I saw dolls being referenced in the movie. Yes, you did. Once in the very, very beginning for like 3 seconds in this huge wide shot, and then a few times throughout the movie where we saw specifically the controversial Barbies, like Happy Family Midge or Teen Talk Barbie. Those were the only real dolls that were highlighted for the film, which is like, okay, sure, I'm sure all the BuzzFeed listicles highlighting the dark side of Barbie really appreciated the traffic, but there's a whole world out there. A whole world full of incredibly iconic, influential, historic dolls that could have been featured. Barbie herself, the main Barbie, is noted to be a 1985 Day to Night Barbie, but they never call her that. They just call her stereotypical Barbie, which is another thing I kind of took issue with. If they wanted to imply that she was like the most fundamental Barbie, they could have called her like, I don't know, basic Barbie or something. Stereotypical just has this negative connotation to me. I don't know. Also, the implication that Day to Night Barbie doesn't have a job when she is like the most employed Barbie. I digress. I really loved Barbie's wardrobe in the film. I loved the styling. I thought it was fun. I thought it was clever. I loved the way it played with different inspirations and vintage fashions. The styling of all the secondary Barbies, too, I really liked. I have no complaints with the costuming. Speaking as someone who majored in costume design, let me flex that degree one more time. I would not trade Margot Robbie in that cowgirl outfit or the skating outfit for the world. Let me make that clear. However, I still think it would have been nice to see more outfits that were directly inspired by actual Barbie dolls. Like, off the top of my head, dolls that would have fit perfectly into Barbie's wardrobe in the movie: 1993 City Style Barbie, 1995 Shopping Chic Barbie, Earring Magic Barbie. Yeah, I know, the kin, but the Barbie's dress is still really cute. Sweet Roses Barbie, Perfume Pretty Barbie. The possibilities are endless. And I know the movie had this collaboration with Chanel to access their archives, which is pretty cool, speaking especially from a fashion history standpoint, but it would have been amazing to see some Bob Mackie pieces, as considering how many Barbies he's designed and how long he's been working with Mattel. Speaking purely from a marketing standpoint, this would have been the perfect move to introduce a whole wave of reproductions with the very first Barbie, of course, always nice to see her again, but also all these other dolls that people would recognize watching the movie, then feel nostalgic for and go search them up, and oh, lo and behold, available for purchase right now on mattelcreations.com. And just like, as a fan, imagine how many more references you could have put in the movie too. Like, imagine a scene where Margot Robbie passes by an old holiday Barbie and she's like all jaded and still stuck in the box because no one's allowed to unbox holiday Barbies, right? Or when she's rollerblading, she starts kicking up sparks and causing fires and chaos, and she's like, oh my god, who would design rollerblades that start fires? Like, there is a 60 years worth of history to pull from, and all we really saw were a few cameos from those quote-unquote controversial Barbies. But yes, we did get dolls specifically made for the movie of the original looks, which brings me to point number 2 in my convenient handy-dandy list. The dolls for the movie were subpar. They just were. Look, I own a few of them. I spent money on them. Whether that makes me more or less justified in saying this, I don't know. But the fact remains that they were not, they could have been a lot better. One of the biggest problems I have with the Barbie movie dolls is a little difficult to explain, especially to someone not well-versed in fashion doll terminology, but I will do my best. So, the dolls for the Barbie movie are not really fashion dolls. Well, they are by the strictest, most basic definition, but in a broader sense, they're character dolls. They are dolls very specifically of the characters in the movie. Barbie is not Barbie, she's Barbie from the Barbie movie. Ken is Ken from the Barbie movie, and so on. So Barbie doesn't look like Barbie. She looks like Margot Robbie as Barbie, which might not be a very important distinction to general audiences, but it matters. Ken does not look like Ken. He looks like Ryan Gosling as Ken. And there's definitely mixed opinions on the faces used for the Barbie movie dolls. I don't think they're bad. Some people really hate them. I like them, but I don't love them, and I probably would have preferred something more neutral. That really comes down to personal preference, though. The reason that this is important is because it meant that all the Barbie movie dolls were heavily quarantined away from all the regular Barbie dolls in their own section, in their own world, treated basically as an entirely separate product line, which I just do not think was the right move. I don't think producing character dolls of the characters in the movie was a bad idea. No, that was correct. It's just the fact that they were all entirely separated from Barbie, the brand, which, again, I think is a problem that could have been easily rectified had the movie actually featured more actual Barbie-inspired looks in it. And the dolls themselves were just, like, okay. There's some cute ones, but you can tell Mattel did not expend a whole lot of budget into that line. The quality is just, I mean, I guess it's about what you would expect from modern Barbie. Papery thin fabrics, printed on details, and as little hair as they can possibly get away with. And some dolls are also just arbitrarily priced at around $50 just because they came in a bigger box and a stand. Way overpriced. Also, if you were on ground zero, then you remember how difficult it was to actually buy these dolls when they first came out. Actually, in my end of the year, my annual flops and faves video, I recall ranking the Barbie movie doll line as one of my biggest flops of that year because the release was fumbled so extremely badly. Distribution was awful, stock was undermanaged, and Mattel really dragged their feet getting any sort of restocks out. Don't get me started on the actual lineup of the doll releases because I can go on for hours about that. If you looked at all the releases we got for this movie, you would think Ken was the main character of the Barbie movie, which, like, yeah, he was a fun character. He had fun looks, but knowing the plot of the movie, the fact that his releases were heavily prioritized over Barbie is just... it's so ironic. It's almost funny, but it's not funny. It's maddening. The only release that we got from the Barbie movie that was based on a pre-existing doll was a Ken. And it wasn't even the Ken. It was the Palm Beach Ken. Not a reproduction because that doll never actually came out, but updated for the Barbie movie. It is just an unbelievably historic fumble considering all the dolls we never got. Any of all the super diverse secondary Barbies, we got President Barbie, and that's it. No Hari Nef Barbie, no Dua Lipa Mermaid Barbies. We didn't even get an Alan doll for 2 years, and the one that we got is disgustingly hideous. There's just so much more Mattel could have done in basically every single way, but as a whole, I honestly think that the Barbie movie line is just not that memorable. Pretty forgettable, actually, outside of just like a select few dolls. And with how many brand collaborations we got, how many products, how much Barbie was just absolutely everywhere for almost an entire year, why did we not put any of that energy into the actual dolls? So yes, that's a pretty big failure in my book. And that brings me to point number 3. Mattel did not capitalize on the Barbie core trend. With an asterisk next to that statement, and lower down next to another asterisk, it will say directly. Mattel did not capitalize on the Barbie core trend directly. Because they tried, they just did a really bad job of it. From 2022 to basically the end of 2023, you could not escape Barbie core. It was great. I loved it. The trend was everywhere. And very important to note, this was entirely organic. Mattel did not invent Barbie core. Barbie core was coined by the general public. And you can tell because Barbie core is very pink, very glamorous, very sparkly. If Mattel had a say in it, Barbie core would probably be an ill-fitting shirt dress with a ruffle somewhere random that a ruffle absolutely should not be, and it has like your inner unicorn sparkles on written in the ugliest font you can possibly imagine. We would all be going to see the Barbie movie in an oversized t-shirt that looks like it was painted in a second grade art project. We would all still be wearing rompers. Again, with like a big ruffle just placed randomly across the front. We should all be thankful that Mattel did not have a hand in inventing Barbie core. When Barbie core started to get a lot of media attention, though, Mattel did start using the word themselves. They started inserting it into product descriptions here and there. They made some Barbie core merch of their own, as in like hats and shirts and stuff, but outside of the Barbie movie line, which I already mentioned was treated as an entirely separate thing from the main Barbie line, 2023 was just a very stagnant year for Barbie. There weren't really a lot of memorable releases, just in general, both in playline and collector levels. The fashionistas really weren't anything special. The collector dolls, I remember it was a lot of celebrity dolls. A lot of celebrity dolls. There was like the Barbie Looks collection, which was okay, but again, nothing that exciting. Some of the absolute worst career dolls in Barbie history happened that year. The violinist doll, I remember her. There was the Barbie Extra travel line. That one was all right. Also, if I remember, that was the last we ever saw of Barbie Extra, for better or for worse. So yeah, aside from the Barbie movie, it was just like not a very significant or memorable year for Barbie. To which you could argue that these things take time to prepare for. You know, a doll can spend anywhere from a year to 2 years in production. And that's valid. That's a perfectly valid argument. Yes. But you also have to remember that Barbie core started being a thing when the Barbie movie was being filmed, long before it released. Mattel really did have ample time to prepare themselves for the movie's actual release, and they did in a lot of ways. Again, you know, the metric ton of 90,000 brand collaborations, they just truly did not bother to factor anything into the actual dolls, which is just so wild to me. Things did start to look up more in 2024. We got the deluxe style line, which replaced Barbie Extra. Not the most elaborate, gorgeous Barbie dolls ever, but definitely a step in the right direction, and definitely an attempt to capitalize on Barbie core just approximately 6 months after anyone actually stopped saying Barbie core. We got the pink Premiere collector doll, who I bought and who is one of my favorite Barbies I own. One of my favorite dolls in general, actually. I really adore this doll. We got a brand new Alan doll too, who is adorable and vastly superior to the terrifying nightmare demon Barbie movie Alan doll. So they were noticing, they were adapting, they were taking notes. Definitely a little late, but better late than never, right? But there was still this overall reluctance to incorporate the things that people liked about the Barbie movie into Barbie. In fact, they sort of took the opposite lesson from this. Oh, people really enjoyed the aesthetic of the Barbie movie and really resonated with its brand messaging. What they want must be more Barbie movie dolls years after the fact. Here you go. And I know I said I did want more Barbie movie dolls of specific characters, but like, when the movie came out, that window is gone. It drove away and it left you in the dust. And even still, even though we're years past the release of the movie, they're not making the dolls anyone actively wants. No, still no Hari Neff Barbie, still no Dua Lipa Mermaid Barbie. You get more Kens with a more realistic face for some reason, and another President Barbie in an outfit that I think approximately 0 people desperately wanted to see on a doll. It's like Mattel both vastly underestimated and underprepared for the movie's success, and then subsequently overestimated the movie's staying power and cultural impact. And yes, it absolutely had cultural impact. I'm not about to die on the hill that it didn't. The movie was a huge cultural moment, but the key word is was. People move on. General audiences move on. It's a fundamental rule of the universe that a successful movie has about 2 years before people start making threads on Reddit about how actually the movie wasn't that good, and we were all under some sort of mass cultural psychosis. The Barbie movie may fade away from the cultural consciousness, but Barbie, the brand, will stay here. Barbie herself is eternal. And this was the perfect opportunity to put the work into improving and refreshing the brand to better align with the public's expectations. And subsequently, if you had more brand synergy with the movie, one could argue that would have increased the movie's longevity too. No one can really say that for certain, but it would have been worth a shot. At least I think so. And the last point worth discussing, despite the massive, overwhelming success of the Barbie movie, Mattel took the wrong message. If I were to ask 100 different people why they think the Barbie movie was successful, I would probably get 100 different answers. Cultural relevance, broad audience appeal, the nostalgia factor, and an all-encompassing, inescapable marketing campaign. All that is more or less objectively correct, but if we reframe the question a little, why did people enjoy the Barbie movie? Why did people love the Barbie movie? It's because the movie had a very surprising amount of depth, and it respected the audience. It appealed to our nostalgia, but it also on some level challenged that nostalgia. It resonated with people because it wasn't afraid to discuss feminism and womanhood and connected those messages with something so intimately familiar to us. Toys, dolls, Barbie herself. If we grew up with her, it reminded us what felt so magical and so special about connecting with Barbie. That is the charm of the Barbie movie. Mattel's takeaway from that ultimately was, wow, people sure do love to buy products and think about buying product and reminisce about buying product. Because shortly after the success of the Barbie movie, Mattel wasted no time in announcing its plans to create what is becoming known as the Mattel Cinematic Universe. In addition to a dozen films confirmed to be greenlit based on existing Mattel products, Mattel also expressed plans to create 45 additional films, all based on, again, Mattel products. Some of the movies we have to look forward to are the Polly Pocket film currently in production, American Girl, Rock'em Sock'em Robots, Uno, Magic 8 Ball. That one is actually a series and apparently has been in the works for a few years, so I don't know if it counts, but it's here. Also, Matchbox, Hot Wheels, and Viewmaster, among others. And some of these are fine. A Polly Pocket movie could potentially be pretty fun, I don't know. But I think Mattel is really overestimating the cultural relevance of most of their properties. I don't think anyone is going to be dressing in red vinyl jumpsuits to hop on the Viewmaster core trend. I don't mean to repeat myself, but it's extremely important to remember that the vast majority of the Barbie core trend was completely organic. Once you, as the company, try to force another pop culture moment like that, it's over. The general public is going to smell it a mile away and they're going to reject it. You cannot genetically engineer a pop culture moment. Maybe some companies can, Mattel can't. I have absolutely no faith in Mattel's ability to predict and engage with audience reactions. And I've spent this whole video discussing why. And what's especially egregious about this is that Mattel's takeaway is not even that people love buying their products. No, they're banking on the fact that people love to buy the idea of their products. Because throughout last year, Mattel has spoken pretty frequently about its plans to shift priority away from being a toy company. No, they want to transition into an IP-driven company. Or in their words, they've kind of already done that. So they don't want to be responsible for these supposedly cultural relevant properties that they've spent years cultivating. No, they want to hoard these brands purely as some kind of status symbol and put the responsibility of making the products onto other people, other companies. They want to license out these properties in hopes that that will increase their reach, but when it comes to actually making good and lasting products that people want to buy, no, that seems to be pretty beyond their abilities. So it's very interesting that after how successful the Barbie movie was, even for the sales of Barbie dolls, they did not internalize the message that people want to buy Barbies. They want to buy good Barbies. They want to buy stylish Barbies that align with their ideal of Barbie. Despite that absolutely being the simplest solution and the most straightforward way to improve the brand and Barbie's image, they just won't. And it's insane to me. Barbie is already a cultural icon. Barbie is already a symbol. She's already a label powerhouse. Just make good dolls. Just make good dolls. I can't believe that's what this entire conversation boils down to. But here we are. You have the recipe, you have the audience, you have the knowledge of exactly what the public wants, what kids want, what adult collectors want. You give us crumbs from time to time of exactly that. So why are you letting Barbie, the brand, the doll, the cultural icon just totally stagnate? Why are you not doing more? I mean, I know why, because it costs too much money to actually put a decent amount of effort into your products, but still. And that is, or are, the failures of the Barbie movie. Yay. Conclusions are hard. I think I pretty much said everything I needed to say. So now I turn it over to you. Let me know your thoughts. How do you feel about the current state of Mattel, of Barbie? Are you excited for any of these upcoming Mattel product movies? Whatever's on your mind, be sure to let me know down below. And when you're done with all that, just be sure to like and subscribe for any future Fashion Doll content. And remember, keep it cute.